Hello everybody, it's Shady here, and for today's video we are going to talk about Silent Hill 2. Obviously, we have the remake coming out not too long, in a couple of months. So, today's video, I'm going to talk about, well, how you can play the game, because I'm sure there's people who want to play the original. You know, this is always how it is anyway. You know, when there's a new game in a series coming out, it puts interest in the older games in that series. So, today I want to talk to you about Silent Hill 2 specifically. So obviously, before we get into the different ways you can play the game, first of all, let's give a little bit of a rundown in the game. Let's say you clicked on this video and you're just interested in the game full stop. What do you need to know? So obviously Silent Hill 2 is the 2001 sequel to the first game, hence the 2, makes sense, right? Released for the PlayStation 2 back in the day. And the thing with this game is it's kind of regarded as the greatest horror game of all time by a lot of people, or up there as one of the greatest. Not only for the horror game genre, but just in gaming in general, people just regard this as one of the top games you have to play. You know, there's a bunch of games that, you know, a lot of us gamers, or, you know, the game media, everyone as a whole will consider as, you know, must plays, and this is one of those games basically. So what's the setup for the story, for starters? So obviously we are playing as James Sunderland, who has pulled up at a rest stop on his way to Silent Hill, and the reason why is because he's got a letter from his wife saying to meet in their special place in Silent Hill. But there's a catch: she's been dead for a number of years. So how the hell has she wrote this letter? How can a dead person write a letter, as James says in the game himself? So obviously that's where the mystery begins, and then obviously we descend into Silent Hill, and then it kind of goes on from there. We meet all these other cool, interesting characters who have their own thing going on in Silent Hill, and obviously we uncover their stories as well as James and his past, and the whole situation with his wife, and it's just an amazing game. And what makes it so great, this is the thing with Silent Hill overall. So obviously when we compare it to Resident Evil, which was like the other big survival horror franchise, so what Resident Evil does is, I think it's so great in terms of the gameplay and just, you know, being a bit more, the controls being more refined, the game design overall being better, I think. Personally, I know this is kind of, that's an opinion, I know, but I just felt like the Resident Evil games just play better and hold up better. But what Silent Hill does is it has this amazing atmosphere, incredible sound design. It's just so creepy and terrifying. It's like psychological horror and atmosphere done perfectly. You know, it's you know, this game in particular, I think is probably one of the most effective just horror experiences in general, because obviously video games, I think, because it allows for interactivity and for the exploration of worlds, it allows for horror to be more immersive, I think. And this game in particular, I think it's the magnum opus of horror games, really, in a lot of ways. Even though personally I would say Silent Hill 3 is my favorite of the series. I'm probably in the minority with that, but 2 is just, I have to give it its due. It is an absolute masterpiece. And obviously what makes it great is it's like you're experiencing someone else's nightmare almost. That's what's so great about this game. And, you know, it evokes all these emotions in you through not just the story, but in terms of the gameplay and the atmosphere. And I've said atmosphere about 10 times now, but I'm going to keep saying atmosphere all the time, because it's about the atmosphere, you know? And without it, what is a horror game, right? So that's why it's so important. But anyway, that's everything you pretty much need to know about the game itself. Obviously, it is an old school horror game. Silent Hill obviously takes, it almost feels like it takes elements of like point and click adventures and almost RPGs in a way. This is a weird analogy that I've never heard anyone else besides myself say, but I'm going to say it anyway. So with Silent Hill, it feels like the town itself of Silent Hill, because we are in the town of Silent Hill, is like an overworld that you explore, like the map, and then you have areas you go into, like you know, the West Side apartment buildings and some other places which feel like almost dungeons. They're these self-contained areas that you kind of do things in, explore puzzles, blah blah blah. Because obviously the core gameplay loop of Silent Hill is exploring the overworld of Silent Hill to do some things, you know, gaining some sort of items or whatever you need to get to the next main area where you'll do all your puzzles and uncover stuff with the story and all sorts. And it's just a great mix. And like I said, having these other characters involved is part of what makes it so great, because you know, you're intrigued by what the hell is going on with them, or why are they in this town with us as well, and it's all a part of the mystery. Because not only is it horror, but there's also that mystery element, because we don't know anything about anyone, even James himself, which is all I'm going to say about that, because yeah, you just need to play this game, okay? That's all I need to say. I've spent like 5 minutes talking about this. This is meant to be a video about how you can play the game, but I just have to get that out of the way because it is an amazing game and you have to play it, okay? I'm getting kind of excited now, as you can tell. So next up. So now, how are you going to experience this absolute masterpiece of a game? So obviously, the first thing, I've only got a couple of copies of the game, so, but I'm going to show you one of the ones I have, which is, this is the original release on the PlayStation 2. This specifically is the 2-disc special edition. I believe, I want to say this was a European exclusive, because we always got games a little bit later. So this version is obviously a special edition with 2 discs. You know, as you can see, has this awesome kind of cover. Unfortunately, I've kind of had and traded in like 2-3 versions of this game over the years, and I've never been able to find one with, you know, an outer cover that's in good condition. You're probably going to pay a little bit more for that. But yeah, this doesn't just have the game, but it has a bonus DVD, which is this making of Silent Hill 2. It's like a half-an-hour video of, you know, the making of the game, believe it or not. And it's just really good. You get to see a lot of the creators and the inspiration for the games and everything they have to say about it, really. It's really cool. Definitely worth picking up if you can. But obviously, you can just watch it on YouTube. It has been uploaded to YouTube, so if you want to watch it, please give it a watch. I'd probably suggest, I mean, you could probably watch it before playing the game, really. But you might want to watch it after, I would say. Because there are little bits of spoilers in terms of enemy designs and that sort of thing. So, but that's just one way of playing it. A couple of years later, there was a version on the Xbox, original Xbox, which is kind of more of a special edition because it added a second scenario, kind of an expansion, if you will, set. I think it's either before the events of Silent Hill 2 or coinciding, I can't quite remember, where we play as a different character, and obviously that's included in it. The original Xbox version also, I believe, was capable of doing slightly higher resolutions, because obviously the Xbox just was anyway, while it was able to do component, I think, and yeah, it just had, because the PS2 could do component as well, but the Xbox had a lot of games that were compatible with it. So yeah, I think it's like, you could do 480p. 480i is the PS2 and Xbox is normal thing, and I think you could do 480p, I'm pretty sure on that. And also the lighting was improved. I can't quite remember what it is, but I think it's like, it's a more modern sort of lighting solution. I don't know if it's pixel based or whatever, but it just looks better anyway. So if you want that, you've got that version. There is a little caveat though. So the original PS2 version, the pre-rendered cutscenes in the game, which were just like CGI kind of things that looked better than the actual game itself, they ran at 60 frames, whereas the Xbox and all subsequent versions only run at 30. So that's one thing to worry about or to look into if you know, if you're interested. And obviously, next up, there was a kind of much maligned PC port as well, which is kind of difficult to get hold of. Was released on DVD, and yeah, you're gonna find it hard to get hold of that. So yeah, I wouldn't bother with that version unless you're like a hardcore fan and you want it, because obviously it's going to be difficult to get that running on a PC anyway. But yeah, so obviously, yeah, it's really up to you if you want that version or not. But you know, it's an interesting curio anyway. But again, like I said, it wasn't the greatest port. And this is going to kind of be a feature going forward now with the ports. But there is options for the PC side anyway, which I'll get into after all of that. We'll go a little bit more into that. But next up, there was a probably even worse port actually, which is the Silent Hill HD collection. So this included Silent Hill 2 and 3. So I want to just explain something. There's going to be a lot of explanation in this video, as you can tell. So basically, Silent Hill 2, no, sorry, during the 7th generation, PS3 360. Obviously, they were the first HD console, so there was this whole kind of craze with doing HD ports. So essentially, they would just take usually a couple of games, 2 to 3 games, sometimes more if you're lucky, chuck them on a disc, and upscale them to typically 720p. Some of them were 1080p as well, and yeah, sometimes the frame rate would improve, sometimes they wouldn't, and it was just an interesting way to, you know, have a collection for people to play in HD. For the most part, they were good, cool collections. They were literally just the original games upscaled, so you can't really go wrong. But this is an interesting port. So first of all, they got a studio called Hijinx Studio, who had no experience doing any porting at all, and they decided to have them do it. I think they only just made mobile games or something, so they decided to have them do ports of just 2 and 3. They didn't have like the full source code. They didn't have the original source code of the game. They had like an incomplete build they had to work with. So this port was notoriously terrible because there's a lot of glitches and effects that just aren't there, and loads of issues. If you're really interested, if you're really interested, you got a couple of interesting videos to check out. We have Digital Foundry did a video on Silent Hill 2 specifically, where they kind of go over the HD collection, and Twin Perfect have done basically a 2-hour video split into 2 parts talking about the HD collection. It's probably one of the funniest friggin' videos on YouTube. Please check them out. Yeah, they've done like this whole series on Silent Hill, but those 2 videos in particular are amazing. Split 2 hours, but split into 2 parts. The first part is specifically on the port. The second part is specifically on the voice acting, which is what we're going to talk about next. Another thing is there was this big controversy with the voice acting. They didn't want to pay royalties to the people, because basically they didn't pay any of the voice actors money for the subsequent ports, like the Xbox and PC port, and then they wanted to do this, and it was going to be an issue. They tried getting the voice actors to like waiver away their right for any sort of money, and then on top of that, they also had this terrible like dub for both games, and yeah, Troy Baker, who is a pretty great voice actor, Laura Bailey, a bunch of other people, they did the voices for the games. Yeah, Troy Baker does the voice of James, and he's pretty terrible in that role because the voices just sound like anime characters, really, if you know what I mean, like bad anime dubs. And the original games, they didn't sound like that at all. They just sound like normal people. But thankfully, so Guy Seehey, who did the voice of James Sunderland, he got all the voice actors together. They basically signed away waived their rights to do it, to get any money, just so that they could put the original voices in it. So long story short, Silent Hill 2 has the original voices included. Silent Hill 3 doesn't. So yeah, it's a bit annoying. But another little caveat with this port is this version, the PS3 version, did get an update to improve things. It's still not as good as the PS2 or Xbox versions, but it's an improvement. The 360 version unfortunately didn't get that. I have no idea why that is. I think there might have been a limit to how much an update could be space-wise on the Xbox or something weird like that. I'm not quite sure, or the cost of what the updates were or something. No idea why, but yeah, if you're looking to buy this version, if you do, pick up this version. But there was also kind of a reason to pick up the 360 version as well. So the 360 version is actually backwards compatible with the Xbox One and Series systems. So it's actually like the most accessible way to play the game. So yeah, even though it's not ported or it's not been patched, it's the easiest way to play it. So yeah, I picked it up not too long ago digitally because it was like £8. It's usually about 24, so which is actually still cheaper than buying the physical copy. Unless you really want a physical copy, then you can pick it up. So yeah, it's actually kind of one of the cheapest ways to actually pick the game up. Because that's another thing, Silent Hill 2 is kind of expensive, no matter what version you get. You know, looking at kind of, I think typically 40 plus for the game. The HD collection is a little bit cheaper. Obviously, yeah, the PS2 version, I think this version in particular is probably the most expensive. And then there's the special edition version as well, which is, I think is a little bit more, a little cheaper, sorry. And then obviously the Xbox version, original Xbox version, a little bit cheaper, so if you're interested in that. I believe that version is backwards and compatible on the 360 though, so that's another thing. So if you want to pick up that version, unless you have an original Xbox anyway, so probably the best way to play it is on the original Xbox. So, but yeah, onto the PC side now. So this is the interesting thing with the PC version. So there's been this amazing fan-made effort to get the PC version up to scratch. So we have what is called the Enhanced Edition. So there's a whole website dedicated to this. Obviously, you'll have to source your own copy of the original game, and then it basically creates all these enhancements to make it the best possible version of the game. I think you can play up to 4K, you can have 60 frames a second, widescreen, because I think the original was 4:3, and there's all sorts of things as well. And obviously, you can play any of these on emulation as well on top of that. Enhanced Edition, I think, is also compatible with the PS2 version. So if you have that one, I'm not sure about the original Xbox version at the moment, but I'm sure that will come at some point. Because obviously the PC version is kind of hard to deal with. There's other ways of sourcing it. You know, Google is your friend, all that stuff. That's up to you. But yeah, obviously you can rip the PS2 file onto a PC as well. That is a thing you can do if you want to run that version on PCSX2. So yeah, obviously it's up to you. Obviously now we're going to get down to what I think is probably the best way to experience the game now. In my opinion, obviously you have, obviously, you know, the best way to play it still is the PS2. Obviously it depends on your setup. So obviously to play it, what I think is the most optimal way would be getting a PS2, hooking up to a CRT TV, get a nice pair of headphones or a good speaker system or something like that to really experience the game for the fullest. But obviously that's not really very easy for a lot of people, you know, kind of difficult to set up. But obviously the next best option would obviously be doing the PC route. You know, Enhanced Edition is actually the best version, but it's a lot of messing about. You need to know how to do all of the modding and all that. I think you have to, obviously, like I said, you have to source a copy of the game, the PC or PS2 version. You have to have the emulator to run the PS2 version as well on top of that, which will involve getting a BIOS file for the PS2, which is kind of, you know, illegal. Well, it's a legal grey area. You need to source your own BIOS file. And then, obviously, you need to be able to download the tools and know what to do to put the Enhanced Edition patch onto that version. So, yeah, in terms of convenience, it's not really the easiest. Another thing though is obviously, I believe obviously you can use emulation on a Series S or X while using dev mode as well. That's another way of doing it. So if you want to play, like, I think you can do original Xbox or PS2 emulation on the Series S and X, and you can upscale them. So that's another option. And then yeah, that's pretty much it. Obviously, I would say these HD versions, if you have to play them, probably pick up the PS3 version, you know, if you can. Obviously, yeah, the good thing is, well, it's weird because now we're getting to the point where the PS3 360 are kind of getting up there in price, but the consoles themselves are still really cheap. But yeah, this game, obviously, like with the 360 version, is kind of getting up there in price, but it still is the cheapest version of the game. So yeah, but that's pretty much everything I have to say in this video anyway. So yeah, you know, if you like the video, like, subscribe, all that YouTube jazz. And yeah, just all I've got to say is, please try out Silent Hill 2 however you can. You know, any way to play the game is still a great way to do it. But I would personally say, try to get that PS2 version if you can. And yeah, experience it with that, like, CRT version. Or experience it with the CRT if you can. It's just, you know, there's no experience like it really, because these older games were designed specifically for that style of monitor, you know, with the refresh rates and the way it does the colors and lighting and everything. So but anyway guys, thanks for watching, have a great rest of your day.